There's a certain kind of person who walks into a disaster and just goes still. The pipes burst, the engine won't turn over, someone is falling apart on the kitchen floor, and while everyone else is panicking, they get quiet, they think, and then they start doing something about it. You've met this person, you might be this person, and here's what nobody tells you. That exact instinct, the one that makes them so calm when things break, has a shadow side, and it shows up in the one place it can do the most damage, the people they love. We'll get there, but first you have to understand where this wiring comes from, because it doesn't start with a broken pipe. It starts decades earlier, when they were very small. In the late 1970s, a psychologist named Albert Bandura named the engine driving these people self-efficacy. Forget the textbook version. It's just your gut-level belief that whatever is in front of you is handleable, not blind optimism, something far more specific. I've faced things before, and this is one more thing I can face. Bandura found that this single belief changes everything about how a person meets a problem, how long they push before quitting, how much effort they pour in when it turns ugly. The fixer isn't smarter than you. They're not braver. They just came to believe, somewhere along the line, that effort moves things. And that belief hardened into a reflex. So where does it come from? Think back to the first time a kid fixes something real. They jiggle the wire and the lamp flickers on. They press on the cut and the bleeding stops. Bandura called these mastery experiences, and decades of research keep landing on the same conclusion. They are the single most powerful source of self-efficacy there is. Not being told you're capable, not watching someone else do it, doing it yourself. That tiny moment rewires how a child stands in relation to the world. The world stops being something that just happens to them and becomes something they can reach into and change. Julian Rotter spent years studying a related idea he called locus of control. How much you believe your own actions, rather than luck or fate, decide what happens to you. People anchored at the internal end of that scale don't just fix things better, they're more resistant to depression. They handle stress without dismantling their whole lives. They last longer in the hard moments. The simple sense that your effort actually matters turns out to be one of the most protective things a human mind can carry. And there's one last piece, the quiet one. When a fixer faces something broken, they're not secretly certain it'll work out. They feel the same dread you feel. The difference is what the dread means to them. Psychologist Stanley Budner studied this as tolerance of ambiguity, the ability to sit inside not knowing yet without falling apart while you work it out. For the fixer, uncertainty isn't a verdict, it's a starting line. The turn, retention anchor, do not cut. Now, this is where almost everyone who talks about the fixer stops. They leave you with the flattering version, capable, calm, the one everyone relies on. But if that were the whole story, this would be a very short video. Because the same wiring that makes someone brilliant with a broken engine becomes something else entirely the moment they aim it at a broken person. And most fixers have no idea they're doing it. Here's the first sign. They don't fall for who someone is. They fall for who someone could become if they just had the right support, the right love, the right person finally believing in them. Clinicians call it idealization, but in plain terms, the fixer sees potential the way a carpenter sees a broken chair, not a problem, a project. And projects are intoxicating, because as long as there's something to repair, there's a reason to stay, a role to play, a way to be needed, which leads to the second sign. They confuse rescuing with loving. Psychologists Mary Lamier and Marilyn Krieger described a pattern they called the white knight. People drawn again and again to partners in distress, because rescuing someone else is how they steady the wobble in their own self-worth. The relationship runs on a current that feels like love but is actually need. Your partner needs saving, and you need to be the one who saves. Pull either of those out and the whole thing goes quiet, too quiet. And that's the third sign, the one that catches fixers completely off guard. Put them in a genuinely healthy relationship, a calm one, someone who has their own life handled, and instead of relief, they feel uneasy, restless. They mistake peace for boredom, because if there's nothing to fix, what exactly is their job? Who are they if they're not needed? A fixer in a relationship with no problem to solve can feel as lost as a surgeon with no patient. Family systems pioneer Murray Bowen had a name for what happens next: overfunctioning and underfunctioning. One person keeps doing more, managing, reminding, repairing, carrying. And the more they do, the less the other person has to. So the fixer ends up exhausted and quietly resentful, holding the whole relationship on their back, swearing they'll stop, and then fixing one more thing. Because stopping feels more dangerous than the exhaustion. So why can't they just put it down? Here's the part that's hard to hear. For a lot of fixers, the reflex didn't come from a happy childhood of wiggling wires. It came from a home where being useful was how you earned your place, a parent who needed managing, a household that ran on the child's vigilance. Psychologists describe this as parentification, when a kid becomes the caretaker before anyone ever took care of them. And John Bowlby, the father of attachment theory, described a related pattern he called compulsive caregiving. People who learned very early that the safest way to be loved is to be needed, so they grow up and they don't fix their partners for their partner's sake. They do it because somewhere down deep, being indispensable is the only version of love that ever felt safe. If I'm needed, I won't be left. That's not romance. That's a smoke alarm that was never switched off. And here's the thing, none of this makes you broken. It made you, at some point, very safe. Your nervous system did something clever with the situation it was handed. But the situation has changed, and the armor is starting to cost you the exact thing it was built to protect. Because real intimacy isn't being needed, it's being loved when there's nothing to fix. The way out doesn't begin with some grand transformation. It begins with one uncomfortable question, the next time you feel yourself reaching to repair someone. Am I loving this person, or am I auditioning to be indispensable? And then the harder practice. Letting someone hold something for you, letting a quiet moment stay quiet without scanning it for what's broken, letting yourself be loved on a day you fixed absolutely nothing. That's the repair that actually matters, and it's the one fixers almost never get to. So I'll leave you with this. Two kinds of people watch this whole video. Some of you saw yourself in the broken engine, the calm, the competence, the quiet, and some of you saw yourself in the part about people, the rescuing, the restlessness when things are finally okay. I want to know which one was you. Drop a 1 or a 2 in the comments. You'll be surprised how much company you're in. And if there's someone in your life who can't stop fixing everyone but themselves, send this to them. Sometimes being seen is the one thing they never learned how to fix.